Hello everyone, today we're peeling back a little corner of reality. The kind no one warns you about until you're knee-deep in it, holding a half-used coupon in one hand and answering a 2 a.m. phone call with the other. We're talking about what it really means to grow old in America. Not the magazine version with smiling retirees on cruises, but the version where you're still on call, just unpaid. You think retirement means rest? Oh honey, you're about to become the most overbooked, unpaid intern of your own golden years. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment. Where are you watching from and what time is it right now? I want to know who else is up folding laundry and questioning their life decisions. Now, calm down, turn on the fan for some soothing white noise, and let's begin today's journey of listening and healing together. Your mind drifts back to the day you retired, balloons, sheet cake. A coworker you barely liked cried. It felt final, like you were crossing a finish line. But within a week, your calendar was more packed than ever. Babysitting grandkids, driving your spouse to doctor appointments, fixing leaky sinks, and answering emails from a distant nephew who's building a startup and just needs a little help. Again. You thought, well, I've got the time. But before long, you're waking up at 5 a.m., not to enjoy a peaceful sunrise, but to walk your neighbor's dog because you're more active than me anyway, right? You exhale slowly. Your knee clicks like a cheap pen. And just like that, retirement doesn't feel like freedom. It feels like a full-time job with no benefits. Ironically, you're now nostalgic for staff meetings. At least they started on time, came with free coffee, and nobody interrupted your favorite show to ask how to refill a Brita filter. According to a recent study, over 60% of retirees in America continue working in some unpaid capacity: family, help, community volunteering, or just being the go-to person who can't say no. Experts still debate whether this is a sign of compassion or a cultural trap disguised as staying useful. You're loved, sure, but sometimes it feels like you're being loved like a talking ATM who also bakes oatmeal cookies. It seems like every time you sit down to read, a favor rolls in, soft as a whisper, heavy as guilt. And just like that, your peaceful moment vanishes. You remember dreaming of retirement hobbies, learning to paint, picking up piano, maybe a solo road trip. Now even brewing a cup of tea feels like it needs to be scheduled. And don't forget to set a reminder, or you'll miss it again. There were days you secretly wished for a minor injury, just enough to cancel plans, guilt-free. So you feigned back pain, which wasn't totally fake, let's be honest, just to get a day off. That was the day the neighbor's dog choked on a sock, your grandchild flunked a quiz, and someone needed help logging into Zoom, whatever that is. Science tells us that aging brains become more emotionally sensitive. The amygdala, our emotional center, grows more responsive to feelings of rejection or burdening others. That's why saying no gets harder. That's why you became the favorite target for every kind ask that slowly bleeds into obligation. Remember, when hard work was considered a virtue? Now you're the full package, hardworking, overly empathetic, and as easy to take advantage of as a forgotten gift card. You close the door after another early drop-off at school. You turn around, ready for 5 minutes of peace, then ping, a text. Hey, could you take Oscar for a nail trim? Oscar isn't human. He's a cat, and he hates you. But of course you say yes, because apparently you're the most available person in the universe. As someone once joked, is it wrong to want to help? Not at all. But it starts to hurt when people stop asking if you can help, and just assume you will. And that's when it hits you. Maybe those famously grumpy old folks weren't grumpy. Maybe they were just like you once. You used to believe staying busy meant staying valuable. But now, you don't feel useful. You feel used. Don't get me wrong. The love is there. The gratitude exists. It's just, it usually shows up late, in the form of a digital e-card with your name spelled wrong. And slowly, quietly, you become the invisible backbone of your community, holding everything up but never asked if you're tired. You stare out the window, watching soft morning light filter through the blinds. A rare moment of calm. Then, ding, another task, another ask. Don't forget to turn on that fan, friend. The next part of this story might just make you want to close your wallet and hide your checkbook. You remember the first time your grandchild asked for money? It was adorable. A shy voice, big eyes, something about a school project, and just $20. You smiled, handed it over, maybe even added a 5. You felt useful, proud even. Fast forward to today, and you're practically a cash app with a pulse. Can I borrow just a little? They ask. Just this once. But once has a funny way of becoming again, and again becomes a monthly subscription to guilt. At first you think it's no big deal. You've got retirement savings, a fixed income, yes, but manageable. Until manageable turns into, why is my checking account sweating harder than I am? It starts small. 20 here, 40 there. A new laptop for college, textbooks, rent, a car repair. An emotional support lizard. Yes, someone actually asked for that once. You try saying no to a lizard named emotional damage. Your brain knows better. But your heart... oh, your heart writes checks your budget can't cash. Neuroscientists have studied this phenomenon. How older adults tend to value emotional bonds over financial caution. It's rooted in something called socio-emotional selectivity theory. Fancy name, simple truth. As people age, they focus more on relationships and emotional satisfaction, which means you might overlook a red flag if it waves from the hand of someone you love. And let's be honest, in America, there's a weird shame for someone else's dream holding on to money. Are you even useful? But here's the thing, no one says out loud, your generosity shouldn't be a business model. You're not a walking student loan with warm cookies, and yet somehow they make you feel bad for hesitating. You get the look, the pause. Oh, don't worry, I'll figure something out. That sentence might as well be a dagger dipped in guilt gravy. You'd rather skip your meds than skip their phone bill, and you have. Don't lie. You know you have. At some point they stop asking with words. They start assuming. Grandma, we'll cover it. Pop's got this. One kid even said, I told my friends you'd Venmo me. Oh, really? Is that part of my retirement plan? Here's a fun fact. A recent behavioral study showed that elderly Americans are more likely to report financial abuse from family than from strangers. But they rarely take action because admitting the truth feels like betraying the people you love, and still, you convince yourself, maybe this time will be different. maybe this is the last time. But the truth? That money's not coming back. Not just the cash, but the sense of security, the ability to say no, the boundary lines you used to draw with confidence. You start second-guessing every purchase. Do I really need this jacket? Is it selfish to want a new coffee maker? Meanwhile, someone just borrowed $200 for concert tickets. You're drinking instant coffee in their front row at Taylor Swift. Even your credit card is side-eyeing you now. You sure, bestie? It seems to whisper with every swipe. And it's not that you don't want to help. Of course you do. You love your family. But love shouldn't leave you broke and emotionally bankrupt. And here's a wild little known truth. Some retirement advisors now recommend creating a giving budget. Like an actual number you set aside just for the inevitable, can I have moments. Because if you don't set the limit, someone else will. Experts still debate whether this shift in intergenerational expectations is cultural or economic. But while they debate, you're over here Googling how to say, "I can't help right now" without crying. You've started hiding your wallet before video calls, pretending your internet's slow when they mention rent, whispering to your reflection, "You can say no, you can do it." And yet, the next time they ask, you say, "Of course, sweetie," because your heart, it doesn't learn as fast as your bank account empties. But here's a little reminder. You matter too. Your peace matters. Your security matters. It's not selfish to protect what you've worked a lifetime for. It's self-respect. You're not a piggy bank. You're a person. And just because your love runs deep doesn't mean your pockets have to. Now go ahead and check that bank app just to make sure it didn't sprout legs and leave, and keep that fan running. The next part, it gets even trickier. You thought the calls would slow down. That maybe, just maybe, once you gave a little, they'd back off. But instead it's like they've sensed the weak point in the fortress. They found the chink in your armor, and now they march through it like it's rush hour. This week alone, you've been asked to watch the twins for just a few hours. You had them for 2 days. Co-sign a car loan. Help temporarily. Store a 75-gallon saltwater tank in your guest bedroom. The fish are still here. They're judging you. And in between, there's always the same refrain. You're so good at helping. You're the only one who understands. You'd think being helpful would feel like a compliment, but at this point, it feels like being the only lifeboat on the Titanic. But what no one tells you is this: your kindness is addictive to other people. It's like free Wi-Fi. The minute someone connects, they forget you're even the one paying for it. Your phone rings again. "Hi, just a quick thing." You already know it's not quick. It never is. And it always ends with you doing something you didn't plan for, usually while your dinner goes cold. Here's something wild. Researchers found that people over the age of 60 show increased brain activity in regions linked to empathy and guilt. When asked for favors, that means your brain is literally wired to feel worse about saying no than someone younger might. Translation: you're not weak. You're neurologically designed to be a soft touch, and don't get us started on the "but" your retired excuse, as if your time is suddenly up for grabs. Like you've been downgraded from respected adult to on-call assistant manager of everyone else's chaos. You remember the first week after retirement, when you sat outside with a cup of tea and a paperback. That book still has a bookmark in chapter 3. That was 5 years ago. You haven't finished a full thought, let alone a full chapter, since then. Not without someone needing a ride, a favor, or emotional support because their roommate stole their AirPods. There's a strange cultural belief that when people age, they become less important unless they're being useful. So, you keep giving, keep saying yes, because deep down, you're terrified of becoming invisible. But here's the secret they don't want you to realize. Every yes you give away without limits chips away at the value of your time. And your time? It's the most limited thing you've got. Here's a lesser-known truth. Studies on aging and identity reveal that older adults who set boundaries firmly and consistently report higher life satisfaction and lower stress. Even just practicing saying no in the mirror can build the kind of neural resilience that helps you reclaim peace. But let's be real. It's not easy. You've been the helper for decades. The strong one. The just call me if you need anything one. Changing that role feels like changing who you are. You once had a friend, Marge, from bingo night, who started saying, "I'll get back to you," instead of answering right away. At first, folks were shocked, but slowly people stopped assuming she was always available. And you know what? She finally finished knitting that blanket she'd started in 1994. You admired that about Marge. Still do. She didn't stop caring. She just stopped overgiving. And maybe you've got a little Marge in you too. So next time the phone rings or the text comes in, try this. Pause. Take a deep breath. And ask yourself, is this something I want to do? Or something I'm afraid to say no to? Because you can love someone deeply and still protect your boundaries. That's not selfish. That's wisdom. You deserve your quiet mornings, your tea, your book, your life, and if someone can't understand that, well, maybe they need to grow up before you shrink down. Now go ahead. Stretch out those legs. Feel your own space again. The story's about to shift. In the next part, you'll remember a time someone really crossed the line, and how it taught you to see everything differently. Keep the fan humming, and maybe put your phone on Do Not Disturb. It started small. Most things do. A favor here. A signature there. Don't worry, I'll handle the details from someone you thought you could trust. You weren't paying attention. Not really. You were too busy juggling rides to the pharmacy, a leaky faucet, and figuring out how to use a QR code for the first time. And then, one day, you opened your mailbox and felt your stomach drop. A letter, thick envelope, official seal. You opened it slowly, because at your age you already know, thick envelopes never mean anything good. It was a bank statement, but not your usual one. It had your name, but accounts you didn't recognize, transfers, withdrawals, a loan, taken out in your name, your breath caught. You reread it 3 times, thinking it had to be a mistake. It wasn't. You called the number on the page, only to be bounced between departments like a soccer ball in a retirement league. Each time, a new voice asking you the same questions, like you were the criminal instead of the victim. And then it happened. You heard his name, your grandson, the one you practically raised, the one who cried into your sweater when his parents divorced. He'd used your information, opened a line of credit, took out a loan, bought, get this, a crypto mining rig and a drone. A drone. You remember sitting down, your knees suddenly hollow. The room spinning, not dramatically, just enough to remind you that this body, this old, generous, too trusting body, can still be hurt. Here's something you didn't know. Financial exploitation is the most common form of elder abuse in the U.S., and in 60% of reported cases the abuser is a family member, a son, a daughter, a grandchild, and experts still debate how much is malicious intent and how much is just desperation wearing a familiar face. You didn't press charges. Of course. You didn't. How could you? Love doesn't vanish overnight. But something inside you did shift. You finally saw the line that had been crossed, quietly, but completely. He called, of course. Tearful, apologetic. It was just for a little bit. I was going to pay it back. The same voice that once asked for bedtime stories now asking for your silence, and you gave it to him. Not because he deserved it, but because you weren't ready to lose him too. Still, you knew things had to change. You started small, changing passwords, calling your bank, setting up alerts. You installed a lockbox for your documents. The cashier at Staples asked if it was for jewelry. You just smiled and said, something more valuable, because your trust. It's priceless. You began learning again, not the fun kind like watercolors or Italian cooking. No, this was the kind of learning people call empowering, but only because terrifying doesn't look as good on a brochure. You discovered the word phishing. You found out your email password was laughably weak, yes, even if it had a number. You learned how to freeze your credit, and unfreeze it, and then freeze it again because your nephew still keeps accidentally using your address on job applications. You got tired of being the easy one, the reliable one, the open door, and slowly you closed it. Not in anger, but in self-defense. There's a little-known psychological term called betrayal blindness. It's when the brain protects you from fully processing betrayal because the truth is just too painful. And that was you. For years, every little ask, every unreturned favor, you brushed it off until you couldn't anymore. You don't hate him. You just know now. Love and boundaries aren't enemies. In fact, they have to go hand in hand, or one of them will rot. And the real heartbreak? You would have given him the money if he had just asked, if he had been honest, but instead he chose to take it in the dark. And that's what lingers. Not the money, not even the ruined credit, the silence. So now, you sit a little straighter. Your passwords are written down in a notebook only you can read. And you've started saying things like, let me think about it. And I don't feel comfortable with that. Because what happened? It taught you the hardest truth of all, that sometimes the people you protect the most are the ones you need protection from. So tonight, when you lock your doors, you also lock your heart, just enough to keep it safe. Don't worry, you're still kind, you're still generous, but now, you're no longer easy, and that, my friend, is the beginning of getting your life back. Now, take a sip of water. Maybe hug a pillow. The next chapter reveals what happens when you try to finally reclaim your time, and people don't like it one bit. It was a quiet morning, the kind where your coffee tastes just right, and the birds outside sound like they rehearsed. You had your list in hand. Groceries, post office, maybe a stop at the thrift store to browse old records. Nothing major, just yours. Then your phone buzzed. Hey, I need a huge favor. There it is, the instant contraction of your chest. That familiar sense of guilt, riding shotgun with obligation. But this time, something in you pauses. You've been reading, thinking, rewinding the past few years like an old VHS tape. You remember? Every moment you were interrupted, every plan postponed, every meal gone cold. You remember the letter, the drone, the betrayal. So today you try something new. You text back, "I'm sorry. I can't help today. Hope it works out." Just like that, 7 words. But your fingers tremble as you hit send like you just confessed to a crime, and within minutes the response, "Wow, really? Just that?" A punctuationless grenade of disappointment. You stare at it, not because it surprises you, but because it doesn't. You've always been available, even when you shouldn't be. And the moment you aren't, people start glitching, like an app that's lost Wi-Fi. Here's a truth you probably never heard. Researchers have found that people accustomed to unchecked support experience withdrawal-like symptoms when that support is suddenly removed. They don't know how to regulate the discomfort. So instead of accepting your boundary, they push harder. "Come on, you're not even busy. It's just a ride. I'd do it for you." Would they? You ask yourself that, not out of spite, but with quiet, honest curiosity. If the roles were reversed, if you were sick, broke, overwhelmed, how many of these people would show up for you? 1? Maybe 2? And even then, would they roll their eyes when you weren't looking? Here's a little-known fact. The human brain, especially in older adults, struggles with what psychologists call reciprocity bias. We tend to assume that because we would help someone, they must feel the same. But that's not always true. Some people were raised on receiving. You've simply been reinforcing the habit. So when you say no, you're not just denying a favor, you're challenging a pattern. And patterns? They don't go quietly. That week, things change. Fewer calls, less laughter. Your favorite grandchild doesn't text back. A cousin unfollows you on Facebook. You're suddenly the villain in a family drama you didn't even audition for. You catch yourself wondering if it was worth it. All this for a morning to yourself. But then, something beautiful happens. You sit down with your coffee. You actually finish your toast while it's still warm. You listen to a podcast that no one interrupts. You pick up that half-finished puzzle, the one you forgot you even had. And for the first time in what feels like forever, your thoughts aren't racing to keep up with someone else's emergencies. Here's a fascinating bit of science. Brain scans of older adults who engage in what's called intentional solitude show reduced cortisol levels and improved cognitive function. Translation: being alone by choice literally makes you healthier. But society doesn't glamorize that, especially not in America. If you're old and alone, people pity you. If you're old and surrounded by chaos, they praise your devotion. Well, guess what? Devotion should never cost you your dignity. The next time someone tries to guilt trip you have a little phrase locked and loaded, not angry, not defensive, just calm like a still lake. I've spent a long time taking care of others. Right now, I'm taking care of myself. You'll be amazed how quickly that sentence separates the respectful from the entitled. Some folks will understand, others will sulk. A few might even disappear altogether. Let them. Because for every person who vanishes when you stop being useful, 2 new ones appear when you start being authentic. You meet them at the library, at the park, at the quiet end of the cafe where they sip tea and nod knowingly. They've lived what you're living now, and they're not interested in taking. They're interested in being, so keep going, keep breathing. You're not wrong for wanting peace. You're just finally strong enough to ask for it. Now stretch your shoulders, take a long drink of something comforting, and steady yourself. The next story is about what happens when you finally speak up at that one family gathering. Yes, that one. You didn't plan to say anything. That's always how these things begin. It was just a family dinner. One of those semi-annual gatherings with too many folding chairs, questionable potato salad, and that one uncle who still wears Bluetooth earpieces like it's 2007. You walked in with a soft smile, holding your famous lemon bars. You told yourself, smile, stay quiet, keep the peace. But deep down, you already felt the ache. The weight of unspoken things pressing against your chest like a seatbelt too tight for comfort. The evening begins like they always do. Stories from people who think louder equals funnier. Passive-aggressive compliments flying across the table like paper airplanes with sharp tips. And then it happens. Someone makes a joke. About you. Not mean exactly, but not kind either. Something about how you've got so much free time now, or must be nice to just nap all day. It lands like a slap hidden in a laugh. You glance around the table, waiting for someone to speak up for you. No one does. So, this time, you do. You put down your fork, calmly wipe your hands on your napkin and say, "Actually, I'd like to talk about something." The room quiets. Forks pause mid-air, eyes shift. You keep your voice even, gentle, but each word is clear, like stones across a lake. I've realized I've spent most of my life saying yes to things I didn't want to do, just to make sure everyone else stayed comfortable. You pause. And I'm not going to do that anymore. There it is. The earthquake beneath the meatloaf. Some laugh nervously. A few try to change the subject. But one person, you catch their eye. They nod. Just once. A silent, sturdy acknowledgement. Here's a psychological nugget you might not know. Speaking your truth in front of others activates the same parts of the brain that regulate fear. That means telling your story is a kind of bravery, and your brain knows it. A cousin tries to interject, a little too loudly. "Oh, we were just joking." You respond, "And I'm just being honest." There's no drama, no yelling. Just you, refusing to shrink. Later that night, as dishes clatter and kids run laps between the adults' legs, a niece you rarely talk to sneaks over and whispers, "I'm really glad you said that." Turns out, your voice didn't just free you. It gave someone else permission to feel the same. Funny, isn't it? All this time, you thought staying silent was keeping the peace. But peace without honesty is just a slow kind of dying. Here's a strange truth. In studies about aging, people who speak up for themselves in social situations are not only happier, but also retain stronger memory recall. It's like telling the truth oils the gears in your mind, and you've been rusting for too long. After that dinner, things shift, not overnight, but slowly. People test your boundaries, and you hold them. Some stop asking for favors unless they truly need them. Others get colder, more distant. You don't chase. Instead, you fill your calendar with small joys, a watercolor class, a walk through the farmer's market, a new series you binge without guilt, because that's the part no one talks about. What fills the space when you finally stop people-pleasing? You discover yourself again, not the version they sculpted with need and guilt and expectation, but you, the one who laughs at your own jokes, the one who wears what you like, not what hides your age, the one who remembers that being alone is not the same as being lonely. You still love your family. You just love yourself now too. So if you're listening to this with a lump in your throat thinking, I could never do that, let me tell you something. Yes, you can. Yes, you absolutely can. Because courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's just saying, no, thank you, with a smile and meaning it. Now take a breath. Lean back. Feel how the room doesn't own you anymore. The next story is a little different. It's about a friendship you thought was real, until you realized it wasn't. Yes, even friends can take more than they give. It was the kind of friendship that seemed eternal. You met her at bingo night, back when you still thought those little daubers were confusing. She showed you which color was luckier. Green, obviously. And you laughed like you hadn't in months. From there it was Sunday coffee, Tuesday mall walks, and an unspoken agreement. Growing older would be less lonely with her around. She always had a story, a new ache, a frustrating son, a memory of her late husband that made you both smile wistfully. And you? You listened. Not because you had nothing to say, but because you were raised to believe that being a good friend meant being available, and then slowly, without you noticing, things changed. She started needing rides, help paying for a prescription. Just until my check clears. She forgot her wallet at brunch more than once. You didn't mind, at first. Everyone hits a rough patch. But eventually it wasn't just help. It was expectation, a pattern. You became her personal support hotline, always on call, always the one giving, until one day you asked her for something. Just something small, a ride to your doctor's appointment. Her voice on the phone got quiet. She sighed. Oh, she said, that's the day I usually rest. And there it was. The truth hit you like a cold breeze in a warm room. She didn't see you the way you saw her. Psychologists call this an asymmetrical relationship, and it's more common among older adults than we admit. One person gives more than they receive, often out of guilt or habit. And the worst part? It feels like love, until you need something too. After that, you started noticing the little things, how your stories always got interrupted, how your joys were met with quick redirects back to her problems, how she only called when she needed something, but never just to see how you were holding up. You didn't cut her off. That's not who you are. But you did start pulling back. You stopped answering on the first ring. You let messages wait. You started saying things like, let me check my schedule, instead of rushing to say yes. At first, she pushed harder. Guilt trips dressed in soft voices. You've changed. I guess I just miss how close we used to be. And maybe you had changed. Maybe setting boundaries is changing. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. Here's a little-known fact. Setting healthy boundaries in relationships, especially later in life, significantly reduces the risk of depression. Not just emotional fatigue, but actual clinical depression. Your peace of mind matters. Your time matters, and the friends who truly care. They want you to protect it. You still see her sometimes. At community events, at the grocery store, wandering the dairy aisle like it holds life's answers. You nod, smile politely. She waves back, but the connection is different now. Not cold, just honest, because sometimes the most loving thing you can do is release someone from the role they were never meant to play. And in that space, where old obligations once lived, you find new people. People who ask how you are before diving into their own updates. People who don't just tolerate your boundaries, they admire them. Here's something scientists have recently begun exploring: late-life friendship pruning. It's the idea that as we age, our brains naturally prioritize quality over quantity in relationships. It's not selfish, it's evolutionary. So yes, maybe you see fewer people now, but the ones who remain, they're real, and so are you. You pour one less cup of coffee at your table now, but somehow the mornings feel fuller, calmer. You learned the hard way that friendship isn't just about showing up. It's about mutual care. And now, you only make space for the people who make space for you. So go ahead, breathe in, let go of the guilt. Let go of the pressure to be someone's emotional crutch. You've earned better. Next up, you're finally going to the doctor. Not for a checkup, but because something just doesn't feel right. And when the white coat walks in, you realize even medical care gets complicated when you're older. And too polite. You sit in that crisp, too bright doctor's office, the smell of antiseptic making your nose wrinkle, and you wonder how you ended up here. Again. Not for a routine checkup. No. This time it's because you've been feeling off. Tired in a way that sleep can't fix, forgetting things that used to be easy, and that persistent ache in your joints that no amount of ibuprofen seems to soothe. You want to say something, anything, but the words get caught. You remember the last visit, how your concerns were brushed aside with a smile and you're just getting older. And the truth? You feel small, invisible, like a background character in your own life story. But today you tell yourself, not this time. So when the doctor finally walks in, clipboard in hand, you look them straight in the eyes and say, I'm not here for just getting older. Something's wrong, and I need you to listen. Now, here's a scientific nugget for you. Studies show that older adult symptoms are often underreported or misunderstood, leading to delayed diagnoses. This is sometimes called diagnostic overshadowing, where age becomes a convenient explanation instead of a thorough investigation. Experts still debate how much this is due to implicit bias versus systemic issues. You know it's real because you've lived it. Your voice, soft but firm, begins to unravel a list of symptoms. Not one, not two, but a handful. Fatigue, memory slips, balance issues. You've tried to ignore them, but ignoring doesn't make them go away. The doctor nods, takes notes, and promises to run tests. That's when you feel a flicker of hope. But it's complicated, because now the bills come. Insurance forms that might as well be written in ancient Greek. Appointments scheduled when you have other obligations. A pharmacy that keeps losing your prescriptions. And worst of all, the feeling that if you don't push, you won't be heard. You start bringing someone with you, a trusted friend or family member, because two voices are harder to ignore than one. You also learn about patient advocacy groups, and suddenly, you're part of a community that shares stories of missed diagnoses, ignored pain, and the struggle to be seen. Here's something few realize. When older adults actively participate in their healthcare, their outcomes improve dramatically. And yet, many are hesitant because of fear, mistrust, or just not wanting to be a bother. You remember how you used to be that person, too polite, too hesitant, too used to putting others first. But this time, you're learning. You prepare questions before appointments. You take notes during visits. You ask for clarification sometimes twice, because doctors don't always speak your language. And slowly, you become your own best advocate. You might still get tired, and you might still forget names or dates. But now you're not just surviving, you're fighting to thrive. So tonight, as you set out your medications and schedule, remember, caring for yourself is not selfish, it's necessary. And no matter what anyone says, your health matters. Your voice matters. So next time you walk into that bright office, hold your head high, because the truth is, you are the expert on your own body. The next chapter. It's about when kindness meets caution, and how saying no might just save more than your money. You've always been the one to lend a hand, right? The person who spots a neighbor struggling with groceries, who answers every call for help, who hears, "Can you cover me?" more times than you can count. You're the embodiment of kindness, and honestly, that's something to be proud of. But here's where the story twists, because kindness, especially in old age, can become a double-edged sword. Picture this. You receive a call from someone you barely know, a friend of a friend sort of situation. They need money. Just a little, they say. It's an emergency. They'll pay you back next week. You hesitate but want to help. After all, you remember those financial scam stories, but this feels genuine, except it's not. Did you know that older adults in the US lose an estimated $3 billion each year to financial scams and exploitation? That's right. Somewhere out there, someone is preying on your generosity, and here's the kicker. Many victims never report it, out of embarrassment or fear of being judged. You probably thought scams were only online pop-ups or shady emails, but no. They're in phone calls, in person, even coming disguised as family or official-looking letters. Scientists call it elder financial abuse, and experts still debate the best ways to prevent it without stripping away dignity or autonomy. But the truth is, the most vulnerable are often the kindest, most trusting people. So what do? You become savvy. You learn to spot the red flags. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. You double-check before handing over your hard-earned money. You hang up on aggressive callers. You talk openly with family or trusted friends before making big decisions, and you remember it's okay to say no. Kindness doesn't mean you owe anyone your resources. It means you protect what you have so you can continue to care for yourself and those truly in your circle. Here's something you might not know. Setting firm boundaries against financial exploitation actually increases older adults' feelings of empowerment and reduces anxiety. It's like learning to swim after years of floating. You realize you can navigate, not just drift. You even join a local seniors workshop on financial safety, where people share stories, tips, and a few laughs. You find community and caution, because in this chapter of life, kindness and caution aren't enemies, they're partners. So next time you're asked for help that feels off, take a deep breath, remember your worth, and say, I care about you, but I need to protect myself too. And the right people, they'll understand. Speaking of protecting yourself, the next story is about the delicate balance of privacy. What to share, what to keep close, especially in a world that wants your data more than your company. Yes, even your secrets have boundaries. Privacy. You remember that word, don't you? Back before everything was posted online. Breakfast selfies, doctor visits, even your grocery lists shared with the world. Now, it feels like your personal life is a reality show without a pause button. And when you're older, this loss of privacy can feel even sharper. You probably don't realize how much data companies collect about you, the products you buy, the websites you visit, even your health information. It's like having an invisible audience watching your every move. Here's a weird fact. On average, older adults share more personal information online than younger generations, often without realizing the risks. Maybe it's the friendly emails, or the urge to keep in touch with faraway family. But the reality? That info can be used in ways that feel downright creepy. Experts are still debating the best ways to protect privacy in the digital age, especially for older users who didn't grow up with smartphones glued to their hands. So what can you do? First, think of your personal info like gold coins. You wouldn't hand those out to strangers, right? Same goes for your data. Be selective about what you share. Use strong, unique passwords. Enable two-factor authentication if you can. And remember, not every friend online is really a friend. You might feel overwhelmed by all these tech rules, but you don't have to do it alone. Many communities offer digital literacy classes tailored for older adults, where you learn to surf the web safely without wiping out. One surprising benefit, staying connected online actually helps cognitive function, the social interaction, the new skills. It's like mental yoga. Just don't forget to log off sometimes and enjoy real-life moments. Now here's the delicate part. Family members or caregivers might want access to your devices or accounts to help. That can feel like a violation, so it's okay to set limits. You can say, I appreciate your help, but I want to keep this part private. Privacy isn't just about secrets. It's about respect. And respect is a two-way street. So next time you feel the urge to overshare, pause. Protect yourself, because your story is yours to tell, not theirs to mine. Up next is a reality check about loneliness. Not the kind you see in movies, but the quiet, creeping kind that visits when you least expect it. And how sometimes the hardest thing is asking for help. Loneliness. It sneaks in like an unexpected guest, uninvited but impossible to ignore. You might be surrounded by family or friends, yet still feel that hollow echo inside. It's the kind of loneliness that doesn't scream. It whispers, settles in your bones, and lingers in the quiet moments. You probably didn't expect this part of aging. Maybe you imagined golden years filled with laughter, visits, and hugs. But the truth is, many older adults face isolation, even in bustling cities or tight-knit families. Scientists have found that chronic loneliness can be as damaging as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. That's not just a figure of speech, it affects heart health, immune function, and even memory. Here's something surprising. The brain reacts to social pain much like physical pain. The same areas light up, proving loneliness isn't just in your head. Experts are still debating the best ways to tackle this epidemic, but one thing is clear. Acknowledging it is the first step. So what can you do when the silence feels too loud? First, admit it to yourself. I'm lonely. It's not weakness. It's honesty. Next, reach out. Call a neighbor. Join a local class or club. Remember that art workshop from earlier? Maybe it's time to dust off those brushes. Technology helps here too. Video calls, social media groups, even online games can connect you with others. Yes, even if you think you're not tech savvy, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Sometimes loneliness isn't just about being alone. It's about feeling invisible. Tell a trusted friend or family member how you feel. You might be surprised how many people want to listen. Here's an interesting fact. Volunteering not only helps others, but also reduces feelings of loneliness in volunteers. Giving back creates bonds that heal. Remember, it's okay to feel lonely sometimes. It's part of being human. But don't let it define you. You're not alone in feeling alone. You deserve connection, laughter, and moments that fill your heart. And speaking of moments, the next story is about finding joy in unexpected places, sometimes right in your own backyard. Sometimes joy hides in the smallest things, like the way morning sunlight spills over the windowsill, warming your favorite chair just enough to invite a nap, or the familiar creak of your old porch steps, sounding like a secret welcome after a long day. You might think that at this stage, life slows down and fades, but actually your brain is still capable of creating new connections. Neuroplasticity isn't just for the young. It's true. Your mind can learn new tricks and happiness can bloom unexpectedly. One day, you find yourself sitting outside with a cup of tea, watching the birds flit from branch to branch. A neighbor waves. You wave back. The afternoon breeze carries the faint scent of honeysuckle. It's simple, but it fills a quiet place inside you hadn't realized was empty. Here's a little secret. Gratitude practice, even just listing 3 good things each day, rewires the brain for happiness. Researchers still argue over why it works so well, but no one disputes its power. You start noticing these moments more, the laughter of children playing nearby, the way the clouds shift colors at sunset, the softness of a well-worn blanket. Joy isn't about grand gestures anymore, it's about presence. You remember those stories about lost friendships, the doctor's visits, the financial boundaries, and the loneliness. And somehow, it all leads you here, this place where kindness meets caution, where solitude makes space for peace. You realize that taking care of yourself isn't selfish. It's the foundation for whatever comes next. So as you sit back, letting the cool evening air wrap around you, you feel a quiet strength. Because you've learned to protect your heart, your mind, your boundaries. You've learned to say no without guilt, to seek help without shame, and most importantly, you've learned to find joy in yourself in small moments, in a life lived fully, quietly and bravely. Sure, Here's a concise SEO-optimized YouTube summary that wraps up the 12 sections of your story about aging carefully and the harsh truths involved, tailored for the US audience. In this heartfelt journey through the realities of aging in America, we explore how kindness can be taken advantage of, the importance of setting boundaries, and the challenges older adults face today. From trusting friendships that turn one-sided, to navigating medical visits where your concerns might be dismissed, to the hidden dangers of financial scams targeting seniors, this story uncovers it all. Discover why protecting your privacy matters more than ever in the digital age, and how loneliness quietly affects millions despite being surrounded by people. Learn practical advice on advocating for your health, recognizing elder financial abuse, and balancing generosity with caution. We also reveal surprising science about brain health, neuroplasticity, and how finding joy in small everyday moments can improve your well-being in later years. Whether you're caring for aging parents or approaching your own golden years, this story offers essential insights and compassionate guidance to help you protect yourself and live fully with dignity. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below with your own experiences or tips on aging wisely. Your voice matters in this important conversation.